Well, Zimbabwe plans to lobby the meeting for the lifting of an international ban on ivory sales. It has more than 70 tonnes of ivory in storage, which is worth $35 million. Wildlife officials say the money could be used for conservation efforts, but animal rights groups fear it could lead to more poaching. Harry Matassa reports now from the capital, Harare.
Zimbabwe's government says it has about 70 tons of raw ivory in storage worth an estimated $35 million. Elephant tusks collected over the years from animals that died from natural causes or seized from poachers. Wildlife officials want an international ban on ivory sales lifted so the country can legally sell piles and piles of these tusks. They say some of the money raised would benefit poor rural communities. People who live in these areas say elephants are dangerous, especially when they stray too close to human settlements and destroy crops. Officials also say people will more likely protect elephants from poachers if they can benefit financially from the animals. It's an initiative that's being called the Campfire Project.
Between 2010 and now, we have lost 68 people from wildlife-related attacks, and these are mainly elephant. And therefore, we are looking to the sale of ivory being the completion of that one missing piece, which will allow our people to better protect the elephant against any form of poaching.
Poachers often use cyanide to kill herds of elephants in the country's national parks. The illegal trade in ivory is big business. Most of the ivory ends up in Asia. Some animal rights activists fear legalizing the trade in ivory wouldn't benefit the poor at all, but could end up helping the lucrative black market.
The people that own the land surrounding the safari parks and all that are all ministers and ministers' families. There's nothing for the communities. The campfire, in Zimbabwe, there's about 1 or 2 that are working. The rest have collapsed because the fat cats are just pocketing the money and it's not going to the people where it's supposed to go.
Government officials deny allegations of corruption. Unlike some countries in East and West Africa where numbers are declining, Zimbabwe has more than 80,000 elephants. Wildlife officials say that's too many for the small southern African country to manage effectively. The continuing drought has affected both people and animals. The cashed-out government says selling its stockpile of ivory could help it raise money to finance struggling national parks and drill much-needed boreholes. But it's a divisive and controversial issue. Some in the international community fear if Zimbabwe is allowed to sell its stockpile of ivory worth millions, poaching could increase and even more animals could be systematically targeted for profit. Harry Matassa, Al-Jazeera, Harare.
Let's stay with the story because joining us live now from New York via Skype is Michael Schwartz. He writes for National Geographic. Thanks for being with us on the programme, Michael Schwartz. Let's start with those ivory stockpiles that we were just hearing about in Zimbabwe. Do you think that those ivory stockpiles should be allowed to be sold?
Thank you for having me. Personally, from Zimbabwe, no, I do not believe they should be sold. Now, I'm not here to fully endorse the trade, but I would say that we have reached a tipping point where our anti-poaching intelligence and ad campaigns haven't really put a dent in elephant poaching. And I understand that people who are lobbying for trade believe that the revenue could go towards added protection and other conservation efforts, while at the same time educating people in order to reduce demand. But the problem right now facing Zimbabwe is there's too much corruption in the state. So I believe that while the intentions would be noble from some of the people who have advised Zimbabwe to allow for legal trade, I don't believe that that particular scenario would work out in favor of people or of elephants.
Many wildlife campaigners, of course, attending that convention want a complete ban, really, on the killing of animals such as rhinos, such as elephants. Is there any place in Africa, in parts of Africa, for there to be a legalised killing of these animals?
I think you have to look at it from a case-by-case basis. I think if we're talking about sport hunting, you have to look at it by basically, the result. If you're looking at countries where they have the legalized killing of animals and yet the population is increasing, that might be a good idea. But at the same time, if you're looking at wildlife populations which are drastically being reduced due to legal killing, then no, absolutely not. And I think that touches on the greater subject of looking at Africa not as a whole, but on a state-by-state basis, nation-state, I should say.
Yeah, sure. Each country, of course, has its individual interests. So many countries attending this convention called CITES. What do you think CITES might actually achieve?
At this point, I don't think that they're going to allow for legal trade. Again, I think in theory it could work, but I think you would have to look at more what the mechanism would look like. What would that look like? I think when we get a better idea, then CITES might be able to go from there. And we're going to have to see the proposals that are laid out in detail from Namibia, from Zimbabwe, and from South Africa. And of course, there's Swaziland, who is petitioning to open the legal trade in rhino horn, as well as South Africa.
Good to get your perspective. Michael Schwartz joining us there from New York. Thank you.
Thank you.